But you are,
I
right?
would
Like, you're
say-
here taking a job from an American that could have that job, right?
Well, that's a good one, Destiny. Maybe, but like, I don't think that, like, given the nature of the H-1B visa itself, right? It was designed for really hard to fill positions in which there are no American applicants available. That's not what it's being used for. Like, and we have, like, and there's places out there like hospitals and stuff that need very specific doctors who have very specific credentials. You know, pediatric oncologists who can work in cardiac surgery, whatever. Yeah, sure. But for what it's being used for now, it's just being misused. And I think Trump finding a way to disincentivize that was shockingly something I agreed with him on. I didn't vote for him, but
Okay, I don't believe any of this. Okay, here's an issue. Okay, nothing that has ever been said about conservatives makes sense. Okay, have you heard of the fucking fence post in the forest or whatever? Do you know what this thing is?
Do not.
Okay, you're wandering in the fucking forest. I guess you're on LSD or whatever. Okay, and your liberal friend sees a fence post and he's like, "Oh my god, I don't know what this is here for. Let's fucking take it out." But your conservative friend sees it and he's like, "Well, you know, it's been here for a long time. It's probably here for a reason." And like, this is like Chesterton's fence that liberals want to upend and destroy everything, and conservatives want to maintain and conserve or whatever, right? Okay, why is it that when a conservative finds like some process that they don't like the immediate go-to is to dynamite and destroy the entire fucking thing? It makes me believe that they don't actually care whether the process was like problematic or not. They just hate the whole thing in and of itself. Because anything in life doesn't work. The first thing you would do is you would try to fix it, or you would do something to like alleviate the issues if you thought there was anything beneficial there. Now, if you thought the whole thing was trash, then you would just get rid of it. So, like, if we think this, so H-1B workers are supposed to be, you're supposed to make a good faith showing effort to the government before you apply for an H-1B visa. That you
MSNBC senior White House reporter Vaughn Hilliard is following the president's trip from Seoul, South Korea. Henrietta Treyz is co-founder and director of economic policy at Beta Partners. Richard Stengel joins me here in studio. He worked under President Biden as Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy, and he is an MSNBC political analyst. Vaughn, I was where you are the first time in his first term. The president traveled there, but explain to me how much of this trip has been substance and how much has been style, at least so far.
Right. Well, how about this? I think the president's style, it's clear, is that he's got a lot of darts and he throws them pretty much anywhere on the map they can hit, even if he's in that country or not. For example, while he was in Malaysia this weekend, he went on the attack against Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister, calling off trade talks with Canada because of a television ad that the province of Ontario ran, quoting Ronald Reagan during the World Series game. Of course, Dodgers versus Blue Jays. That has anything but to do with the focus of his Asia trip. But you noted that he has made his way to Japan, where he is set to have a high-stakes meeting with Japan's new prime minister, who was named the first female prime minister of Japan just last week by their parliament. She, of course, is going to be going through the details of the $550 billion that Japan over the summer agreed to invest in the United States as part of their framework of a trade agreement over the summer. But then he's going to make his way to South Korea, where he's going to be meeting with their prime minister, with their president, as well. He has suggested that he believes that the U.S. and Korea are close to a trade agreement. But in Malaysia, it's worth noting that he touted what he was calling a peace agreement between Thailand and Cambodia. Of course, it is the framework of a peace deal that called for the demilitarization along a border that has been a long conflict point between the two countries. At the same time, the president said that the reason he was able to get that peace agreement, those two leaders in the same room, is because of his tariff policy. He touted his tariff policy and the willingness to put these high export rates on countries' goods coming into the United States for his ability to negotiate. And that includes with China, who he is set to meet with, the President Xi, this Wednesday night, U.S. time, in Busan, South Korea. This is going to be a meeting that Secretary Bessent, in Malaysia with U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer, met with their own counterparts to nail down sort of the initial talks and the framework of all of this. But of course, for the president, again, when we're talking about the darts and where he's looking at on the map, he even threw into the equation that he would be open to meeting with Kim Jong-un of North Korea. In extending his trip, the North Koreans have not shown any desire to have that meeting, but for the American president, his focus is in quite a few different places here as he tries to advance what he believes is the America First cause. here in Asia, Chris.
He always has a lot of balls that he's juggling in the air. So, Henrietta, let me play exactly what the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said about this framework for a U.S.-Chinese deal.
The president had given me maximum leverage when he threatened 100% tariffs if the Chinese imposed their rare earth global export controls. So I think we have averted that. We also agreed on substantial agriculture purchases for U.S. farmers. We agreed that the Chinese would begin to help us with the precursor chemicals for this terrible fentanyl epidemic that's ravaging our country. So I would say that it was a very good meeting overall.
So if you listen to Secretary Bessent, if all that comes to pass, it sounds like a win for the U.S., but what would constitute a win?
The soybean part in particular is a very big deal. My latest understanding is that it looks like the president of the United States is preparing to take off some of the 20% tariffs on fentanyl that they imposed on China early on in the administration, and that in exchange, China will relent and start buying some of our soybeans again. Now, really importantly, President Trump walked back his own Treasury Secretary and said, hey, look, none of this is done until, the fat lady sings. And so there is an appropriate amount of temperance here to just make sure that once President Trump and President Xi get in the room, they actually do get a deal that results in tariffs coming down on fentanyl and soybeans getting sold to China. But we have a long way to go before now and then. And of course, China famously did not live up to its phase one trade deal reached during Trump's first term. So it's not just what's on paper, it's actually what actually gets done afterwards. Are they delivered? Do we actually start selling those soybeans, which is what U.S. farmers are desperately in need of?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the idea, Rick, is that if you greet the president with pomp and circumstance, I mean, he looked very happy. He was dancing, right? That at least puts him in the frame of mind to maybe get something accomplished. There he goes with his dancing. But is the question, even if they initially sort of get a good return on their investment, he looks happy, maybe when they have the conversations, he sounds happy. You never know because he can turn on a dime.
Yes, 100%. I mean, for decades, the U.S. has been a force of economic stability in Asia.
Guy actually, and I was very impressive. But today's his birthday, so happy birthday! All right, would you let him know, please?
Mr. President, a couple more questions on tariffs. Secretary Bessent and Jamison Greer.
He's right here.
Have both said.
Where is he? He's right here, the handsome guy behind
Hi, Mr. Secretary. You said you're near a framework.
Stand right over here. Wait, let me just give him a little room.
Hi, Mr. Secretary.
He's doing a good job. No, get over here. We also have Marco here.
Status on the preliminary talks with the Chinese and where that sets things up for Thursday's meeting.
Okay. So we had a very good meeting, Jamison and myself, with our counterpart, the Vice Premier, and we have a framework for President Trump, President Xi to decide on, and we discussed a wide range of things from tariffs, trade, fentanyl, substantial purchase of U.S. agricultural products.
And rare earths.
And rare earths.
But nothing has been agreed to yet.
How do you feel about it?
We feel good. I mean, we feel good. I feel better that this guy's got nice broad shoulders. If the plane makes a big turn or something, I'm grabbing his shoulder.
Please do.
You know what? I want you to stay over here. Marco, where are you?
Give me something.
I've covered Steve Bannon long enough to know you don't just flip off what he is saying. Do you think that this is actually something that they're going to try to attempt, and should they?
No. I mean, Bannon has no formal involvement with the Trump White House, and if you look at all the stories, the White House declined to comment. The White House rarely declines to comment. So this is him out on his own.
I would argue that the White House response ought to be, no, the president is going to follow the Constitution. He will not be running for a third term.
No formal involvement.
I don't know.
With the White House.
I'm going to dispute this just a little bit. The weeks leading up to January 6th, Steve Bannon was saying all hell was going to break loose if Donald Trump was not necessarily, they didn't certify the results for Donald Trump. Look at what happened. We had an insurrection. Since then, and I mentioned, and I say, well, as much as I can, is he has not only pardoned 1,600 people that are out on the loose and waiting for their orders. And when Steve Bannon says that Donald Trump is potentially going to serve another term, he is sending a signal not only to those 1,600 people that rioted and caused an insurrection at the Capitol, but all of MAGA. And so my hope is that we will have a Supreme Court that will end up stopping this. But I actually think that Steve Bannon truly believes that this is the case, and he is sending a signal to MAGA that Donald Trump should be the president of the United States in 2028.
Let me play, you brought up the Supreme Court. I'm going to play for you what Amy Coney Barrett said in an interview recently when she was asked about this issue. Listen.
The 22nd Amendment says you can only run for office for 2 terms.
True.
You think that that's cut and dry?
Well, that's what the amendment says, right? After FDR had 4 terms, that's what that amendment says.
She sounds like someone who thinks that this will come before the court and doesn't explain more on the legal sort of underpinning of this.
Well, there's not much to explain. It's pretty clear. I mean, you can't.
I agree.
So I don't know why you would want to talk it to death.
Well, why do you think Steve Bannon keeps saying this, and that Trump keeps putting the 2028 hat on the desk and all that?
He keeps it in the on the hats and stuff because he's trolling his opponents, and he knows how crazy it drives them when he does these kinds of things. Bannon, I don't know. I don't know him personally. I don't know him well at all. Maybe he believes this. Maybe he doesn't. I just know what the Constitution says. I know what most Republicans would think about it, and I know what the Supreme Court would do about it. So I don't really think this is serious.
Just to get it on the record, Scott, if this came up and there was a real attempt to give Trump a 3rd term, would you be for it or against it?
I'm long on the record of opposing violating the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution.
This is kind of interesting. Maggie Haberman, she's covered Trump for a very long time, so she understands how this works. And she agrees with you on the trolling. She says he clearly enjoys knowing that it bothers Democrats that he says this, and there's a trolling aspect to it. But the thing with all of his trolls is they start out that way, like Canada as a 51st state, and then he socializes them. They take on a life of their own, or he breathes more life into them. I've covered Trump as well. She is right about that. Steve Bannon is not in the White House, but he's constantly speaking directly to Trump, to people around Trump. These things do take on a life of their own in Trump's own mind. And often that is all that is needed, the permission structure, to figure out one way or another how to make things happen.
I mean, they've already pretty much understood what the vulnerable points are when it comes to the institutions. As I continue to say, the institutions are only going to work if the people within them are willing to defend them. And considering that he put together this Supreme Court, and he did it for a very specific reason, because he knows the things that he tries to do that are outside the lines, that if it gets there, he understands that he has crafted the perfect scenario, and it's checkmate. And so, like, for people to take this seriously, I think we absolutely should. And I'm sorry, I don't understand this game that we play with him. Is like, oh, when he says things that are very dangerous, he's kidding. But then when he actually does it, it's like, oh, I guess he meant it. It's like, I'm not going to play the whole what does he mean game and, oh, he's just trolling, when he has shown time and again that he's very serious about the things that he says. Well, everything is a test.
Yeah.
And he's just going to continually see how far he can get with everything and to see how far he can go. And yeah, considering how hard it was to get him out of the White House before, why do we think that this would be any different? We see who he admires. He admires dictators. The dictators don't leave. So, like, why would we think that he was joking?
What does this say about the support for, like, a J.D. Vance, who's widely seen as perhaps the next person in line, that someone like Steve Bannon continues to suggest that it's not going to be the next guy. It's not going to be Don Jr. or J.D. Vance. It has to be Trump. Let me just play a little bit more from this interview with The Economist where Bannon kind of expounds on that.
The only way President Trump wins in 2028 and continues to stay in office is by the will of the American people, okay? And the will of the American people is what the Constitution embodies. And so I think we're going to be in good hands there. We need to finish what we started. And President Trump is the instrument, a providential instrument to finish that, to finish this job.
And it's a fucking... Holy shit. That's crazy. Oh no, I can't play Jubilee. If I try to remotely play Jubilee, I'll get fucking back. I'll get stricken. Or take it off YouTube.
Worst president of your 19 years of life, Mr. Trump. You know, the guy that's, you know, like declaring war in American cities, giving the military an illegal directive to arrest people in the street, saying it's illegal to criticize him in the media, infringing on the First, Second, 14th, 22nd Amendment, reducing the purchasing power of half of Americans, taking health care away from 10 million of them, and now refusing to allow emergency funding to be spent to keep food stamps going for 41 million low-income Americans. Why do you still support him as president?
My biggest thing is that I necessarily don't support everything he does, for sure. I think the reason why I do support him is because the reason why I do support him is because he's upholding a lot of conservative values.
Which one?
Whereas I feel like yes. So for example, I think that he is against abortion. I think that's the biggest crime in our society. It's the biggest immorality that we continue to support each and every day. The unaliving of innocent children, millions of children each and every year. It is a sad thing. I'm not making fun of those or talking bad about those who have had to abort their children. I think that is the way that society has shaped what abortion means. They don't promote it as the idea of taking away innocent human life. Doctors have established it as something that is socially acceptable, and I think that we will look back one day and realize the sheer tragedy, the sheer chaos that abortion has brought in taking innocent lives. So that's why I ultimately support the Republican movement.
Yeah, okay. Quick question. Are you pro 2A?
Am I pro what?
Pro 2A, pro gun.
I think that people should have access to guns, but I think that we should put some restrictions on who is owning guns. So I do think that everyone that has the ability to own a gun, I do think that there needs to be more restrictions set in place.
But like law-abiding American citizens, do you think they should be able to go out and buy an AR-15?
An AR-15? Sure, I'll say yes.
Okay, all right. So as it relates to abortion, you'd say that you want to restrict a woman's access to abortion because you think in doing so, it'll save the lives of more innocent children.
Yes.
Okay. So if banning AR-15s reduce the amount of gun deaths in American children, considering the fact that gun deaths are
No, not much.
Refugees from Syria coming in, but to the extent that we are,
yes, a lot of them do come in as refugees from Syria and Turkey and Afghanistan and all.
Year before World War I starts. So again, imagine if 2 years later someone was doing something purely for entertainment purposes. It could look bad. And at a moment where Trump is being,
it's for statecraft.
Again, I'm not arguing the point. I'm saying it's more about the optics for me. At a moment where Trump is being accused of assuming
Mark,
a kind of
here's what I would say,
authoritarian...
Mark, here's what I'd say. Yeah, but Mark, here's what I say to that. The reason it's become such a big deal is because of the, in my opinion, massively over-the-top hysterical reaction to it from Democrats. It's not that big a deal, really. It's not costing the American people anything. And if another president who comes in from the Democratic Party doesn't like it, they can do their own thing. The president has the power and authority to do what he's done. He thinks he needs a bigger space to welcome foreign dignitaries and world leaders. That's not really entertainment. That's part of the functioning process of the White House acknowledging and receiving the most important people in the world. I mean, I just can't. I'm trying to get angry about this, and I'm failing.
I don't think you need to get angry about this. By the way, the word entertainment space has been used repeatedly by the White House. That's why people are saying entertainment. I get that he's not hosting like Lollapalooza, but there's still an idea here that this is not a major priority in terms of politics. Again, it's not the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning or stops me from sleeping at night. But I do think it's interesting in a moment where people are seeing Trump seize more and more power, and he's seeming more and more like an authoritarian figure. And there are people who are saying that this requires a federal oversight committee and that this isn't the unilateral decision that should be made. And it costs $100 million more than he said, even though he's the great builder in chief. I think there are reasons why you're almost giving fodder to your political opponents, which creates this hullabaloo that I don't think we need.
Okay, let me just come back, if I might, Michael, to something Scott Galloway said, which may be a much more significant part of this whole debate, which is he believes it's a sign of something else. Let's take a look.
What this means is the following, is that he is normalizing federal troops in cities. He's creating doubt around the election process, and he has no intention of leaving. Because if I'm renting a place, I won't put in a new refrigerator, much less tear down an entire wing. Yeah. So let's be honest, folks. You really think he'd go through this if he was planning to leave in 36 months?
Yeah, it's his new Mar-a-Lago. He's building Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
Now, Michael, Donald Trump was asked on Air Force One overnight. Well, hang on. Yeah, I'm coming to this. So, Michael, on Air Force One, Trump was asked about these persistent rumors that he may run again. Let's take a look.
I would love to do it. I have my best numbers ever. It's very terrible. I have my best numbers. If you read it, am I not ruling it out? I mean, you'll have to tell me. All I can tell you is that we have a great group of people, which they don't. They have Jasmine Crockett, a low IQ person. They have AOC's low IQ.
Now, Michael, my personal view is that Trump is on a massive troll about this, which is winding up the left.
That's one thing we gotta understand. Donald Trump is a fucking troll. So I don't take everything he says seriously. I just point him out. But I don't know. I feel like the more and more he talks, the more and more he's just stupid.
Pretty successfully. I don't actually think he has any intention to run again. However, I don't know for sure. Would you see that if he did actually try and run again? Or there's even this kind of weird conspiracy theory that he may let J.D. Vance run and act as his vice president. Then Vance just surrenders authority to his vice president, who's Donald Trump. Knowing Donald Trump, the idea he would do anything that involves the word vice is unthinkable. And he's already ruled that out as a mad idea. But would you think that if he was to try and run again, that to me would be a step too far? That's way more significant and serious, I would say, than an argument about a ballroom.
Trump's second term thus far has been good enough that I would cheer if, we could have Caesar Augustus, Donaldus Trump. But it's not going to happen because it's prohibited by the 22nd Amendment. Even the idea of his becoming vice president, it wouldn't work. The 22nd Amendment prohibits that. Now, it's worth pointing out, no less a conservative than Ronald Reagan campaigned at the end of his second term and after he left office before Alzheimer's disease to overturn the 22nd Amendment. So there's a longstanding American tradition that that there is a term limit and it's at the ballot box. And the only one who ever abused that was the Democrat Franklin Roosevelt, who became the American monarch. But all of that is kind of beside the point because we have a data point here. These Democrats who are wailing about Trump never leaving office because he wants to make some improvements to the White House at private expense, they seem to have forgotten that we already tested this in 2020 after Democrats had changed all the election rules, in some cases unconstitutionally. Even amid all of that, Donald Trump left office. And then people missed him so much that they invited him back. So maybe in the meantime, once he leaves and J.D. Vance is president, maybe we can finally fulfill Reagan's dream, get rid of the 22nd Amendment, and then we can get Trump to a non-consecutive third term.
Brian, I want to play a clip from Steve Bannon. Obviously,
can I,
being very
Pierce,
close
can
to
I
Trump
answer
over
that
the
real?
years.
Can I?
Well,
can I say
well,
something
just
about that
let me
real
play the
quick?
clip from Bannon, then you can. Hang on a second. I'll play the clip from Bannon. It's on the same theme. Then you can respond. Let's take a look.
You need a third term in order to see that job through.
Well, he's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president in 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is. But there's a plan, and President Trump will be the president in 28.
Brian, your response.
So first of all, Michael, if the way that you're going to disprove the notion that Trump is going to try and seek a third term is by pointing to how he reacted in the aftermath of his loss in 2020, I don't think that inspires much confidence. I'm not sure if you remember,
did he
but
leave
there was
office or
a
not?
full-blown, there was a whole-ass insurrection.
The whole
to prevent
January
himself
6th thing, I
from
don't know if you
trying
missed
to leave
it.
Oh, wow. So hold on. There was a big insurrection and a coup d'etat. So, Brian, let me just ask you, did Trump leave office or not?
Yeah, dude, because he
Oh, he
wasn't
did, okay.
successful at trying to do what
Good.
he was trying to do. He was indicted for blocking the certification of Congress. Like there is this whole revisionist history where people
And then
say,
he
oh,
won
because he
re-election
didn't,
again with
because
the
he
popular
wasn't
vote for
successful
20
at trying the
years.
coup that he was trying, that somehow he didn't try it. His mentality is that he has carte blanche to stay in power, to usurp power, to hold it to himself whenever he wants. And pointing to 2020 doesn't prove your point; it expressly disproves your point.
It literally proves the point because he left office, which you just admitted. But
Not-
now you're
not
saying this
willingly,
time, but this time
Michael.
he's
No,
serious.
I think-
this time
if
they're going to
somebody-
double
think about
super
this.
duper insurrection, the worst in
somebody-
American history. Okay, I'll wait for
So
that.
if somebody,
do you want to
if
place a
somebody
wager?
tries,
do you want to place a wager?
If somebody,
No,
if somebody tries,
I think we can have an
right
honest
now.
conversation about this. That's a little
Do you
more
want- would you
nuanced
place
to
a
that.
bet?
I mean, I think the truth is, I think we can all say Donald Trump indisputably left office. I think we can all say that Donald Trump left office kicking and screaming. He did
Brian say
every
that?
legislation. He made. No, I'm trying to advance the conversation so we don't just have a dogfight the whole time. I'm saying, yeah, there was a fight. Yes, there was resistance. Some of it was legal. Some of it was extra legal. Some of it was flat out illegal. Some of it was nonviolent. Some of it was violent. Some of it wasn't directly from Trump. Some of it was from his support. We get that. But the point here is that Trump did not want to leave office and did everything he could to not leave office, and still doesn't really believe, or at least doesn't state publicly, that he lost the election. And so based on that logic, it's not unreasonable to think that Donald Trump would resist again. And if he resisted knowing that he doesn't have a second term in his back pocket like he did the first time, it's entirely plausible that he goes even harder this time. It's entirely plausible. All the conspiracy theories are possible. And when people who have supported him for years, if not decades, say, look, he ain't going nowhere, that also doesn't inspire confidence
guys
that there's
don't
going to be a
believe this.
smooth transition of power.
You don't believe this. Would you place any money
that,
on the notion that Trump is going to stay in office for a third term?
Just allow me.